at the end. So feel free to type them into the chat or raise your hand, but they'll all be addressed at the end. So my name is Melissa Laverty. I'm from New Hampshire. I have been in business now for 19 plus years, so almost 20 years. I'm an accountant. I own a tax firm here, and I have a staff right now of 6. That fluctuates a little bit depending on the time of the year. And I honestly love what I do. I get to sit across the table from entrepreneurs and family-owned businesses and help them make more money and help them achieve their dreams and their goals. And I love it. I just absolutely love what I do. So let's see. So we are all coming from different backgrounds. We all have different businesses, but there's some common threads among entrepreneurs that I've picked up on over the years. And that is really that we're all sort of struggling along in this journey, a lot of us trying to do it all on our own. And that really isn't what was meant to be. That's not how that's not where the magic is. You have your unique brilliance, but there are other areas that you would need some backup in order to really truly get where you're trying to be. So let's see. When I started my business partner and I were preparing 135 tax returns. That was our first year. We had 135 tax returns. Over the course of the 19 years, we've grown quite a bit. We're now handling about 1,500 tax returns each year, and again with the staff. So things have changed. Things have absolutely changed over the years. I have learned and grown, and I'm hoping to share some tips with you today that would help you avoid potholes along your journey and encourage you to continue on and make the most out of what you're working on. Let's see. One of my favorite analogies, I'm a super analogy nerd. One of my favorite analogies is having a business is like having a baby. You have children or know someone who has children, maybe you can think back to the first few days, hours, weeks that you had this little baby that you are now fully responsible for, and bringing that baby home, and really you don't know what you're supposed to be doing, what's right, what's wrong, how do I handle this situation? And the baby gets bigger and the problems will change. So I love this analogy because having a business is like having a baby. When you first get started, it's consuming all your time, it's consuming all your energy, and really you're taking your best educated guess at getting through things. And the reality is you want to reach out to your village, your doctor's office, your parents, yourself, your mom, your friends, other parents that you have in your network, so that you can really get the support that you need to get through those stages. And then of course there are stages, just like in business. Your first year in business, you're going to struggle with very different things than you would in year 5 or year 10. So oftentimes when I'm talking to someone about their business and they know my analogy, having a business is like having a baby, I ask them how old their baby is. Are you in the beginning stages? Is your business in its toddler stages, or are we, high school, college age? Very different set of circumstances, different approach to solving the various problems that pop up. Okay, so according to the SBA, 30% of all businesses fail in the first 2 years. That is super sad. 50% in the first 5, and 66% of businesses, new businesses, will fail in the first 10 years. I don't want that to happen to you. I don't want that to happen to your friends. So let's get started. Let's dig into Melissa's 5 sizzling secrets to running a successful business. All right. Number 1, this might seem silly, but it's true. You want to be honest. Be honest with the folks that you are, your customers, your vendors, your banker, whoever you are dealing with. I just truly believe in this karmic retribution concept. What you put out, you will get back. So if you're putting out good, you're doing good, you're being honest, good things will come to you. And vice versa. If you're, not being honest and above board, or you're doing things that are making you feel uncomfortable, that's a sign to listen to. So be honest is number one on my list. I love this poster. If you guys can see it, I remember reading this poster when I was little, literally in elementary school, and it really hit home. And this is how I live my life. I play fair, I clean up after myself, I try to leave things a little bit better than the way I left them. Leave things a little bit better than they were when I got there. So that, again, I'm putting the good out there. And it's been 19 years. I have to say that's one of my real strong principles, and it's working. But along the same lines of being honest, it's not just that don't lie concept, but dig a little bit deeper. Here's a list of some questions that if you were to take some time and really truly sit with these questions and think about them and dig deeply, really important to be honest with yourself. So where am I in my business, in my personal life? Where do I want to be? If you are unclear of those two questions, getting to your success is almost impossible because we don't know what that means. We don't know where you're headed. I love this one. What am I really, really good at? So we each have our own unique brilliance. And when you are focused on what you do really, really well, you're going to make money, you're going to be successful, things are going to happen for you. If you're trying to squish a square peg in a round hole, that's when things really can get bumpy and it doesn't work out well. I'll give you an example. Marketing is not a strength of mine. I am not good at speaking the language that a marketer would need to speak in order to represent my business from that perspective. I'm a little bit technical. I'm a math nerd. I'm not that creative when it comes to looking at things from a sales perspective. So for years I struggled trying to create a newsletter, trying to send out emails to my clients. And really what would happen is I worried about it for 3, 4, 5 months. And it stressed me out and I never actually got that newsletter out the door. So when I finally let go of that and hired someone to do my marketing, it didn't happen right away because there's a give and take, there's a back and forth relationship with marketing. It took a little while for me to kind of really get the hang of it. But once I really truly let go of that and found the right person to do the work, now I have a newsletter that goes out like magic every single month. It's generated more revenue for my business because there's this consistent communication thing that's happening both with my clients and with my, my network. So it's keeping me front of mind for them, which is the whole concept of the task of marketing. And when I left it on my to-do list, it was only holding me back, dragging me down, and quite honestly, preventing me from succeeding in the areas that are my natural talents. So really, that's an important one. What are you really, really good at? And what are you not so good at? I would really encourage you guys to do a little homework and spend some time with those questions and really dig deep and be honest with yourself about it. Let's see. What's worked so far and what hasn't been working. I try to at least at this stage, probably every 6 months, if not every 3, I sit down and I really look at what's worked over the last 3 months, over the last 6 months, what's gone right. And I try to do more of that. What hasn't been working, I am constantly trying to improve our process, our communications, what areas didn't go so well. Don't get stuck in the mistakes that happen. Mistakes happen so that you can improve and get better that next time. What's that saying? I think it was Einstein said, I didn't fail, I tried 1,000 times. I can't remember it. I'll get you that quote. So really take some time and sit with these questions and ask yourself, What do I want? What do I need to do to get there? What's in my way? Who can help me? And the last question on this list, what is your biggest challenge? No, really, what is it? Is a little bit of a joke, but in my networking circles, we say, oh, what's your biggest challenge in business? And typically the answer will be a very general time management or something foolish like that. And then if you ask the same, no, really, what is your biggest challenge? Well, I guess it's not really time management. Maybe it's, delegating work. Or you kind of dig a little bit deeper. And the third time you ask that question is usually when you get the answer. What is the biggest challenge? So that one, ask yourself 3 times. So number 1, be honest with yourself and those that you're dealing with. Number 2, being the number nerd that I am and being the accountant, I got to tell you, knowing your numbers is super important. Each business is a little bit different. And each business has at least a few numbers that you should be paying attention to. Of course, I'd love it if you were analyzing your numbers every week or every month, but that might not be realistic. But there are at least a handful of categories that you should always be paying attention to. For just about everybody, that first one is your sales or your income. Where's your money coming from? How much of it are you generating? Where are you making the money? That's one of them. To give you an example of another one, let's see, a restaurant. If you owned a restaurant, you would have a lot of things to measure. You would need to make sure that you're not over ordering your food, or that you have, a staff of 10 when really you probably only would need 4 people for that shift. So a restaurant has really complicated layer upon layer of numbers that you would need to pay attention to in order to be successful and in order to make a profit each shift or each week or each month. So depending on what business you're in, I'll give you another example. Let's see, a photographer. Okay, let's take a photographer who's thinking, oh, you know what? I really want to rent a studio. I would love to have a studio because then I could do more. If you just run out and rent a studio without having run some numbers and looked at it, you could potentially be spending away all your profits on rent. Like, you got to kind of slow it down and say, okay, how much money do I need to make in order to add this new expense of rent into the picture? So each business is a little bit different, but know your numbers. And oftentimes that is the biggest challenge for folks that I deal with, because they're usually creative folks that, they're in business because they're brilliant at what they do, not because they want to be a bookkeeper, not because they want all these administrative tasks to bog them down. So oftentimes I'm counseling people on how to best approach the task of bookkeeping without losing their mind. And there's a lot of really great technology out there for us that makes the task of tracking numbers a whole lot easier. For example, most people that I work with are using QuickBooks Online, which is an online bookkeeping software. It syncs with your bank account, so there's no data entry. You don't have to enter each and every transaction. You simply have to code them to say what it was for. And a lot of folks that are using that have freed up a ton of time in their day-to-day workload so that they can spend more time in the areas of the business that are making them money. QuickBooks Online has come a long, long way in the last few years. If you had asked me a few years back, I would not be suggesting it to folks, but it's really come a long way and become a very valuable tool. So oftentimes I'm helping people set up a system so that they can track the numbers for their business. Once you track it all, a lot of times we have people that will track it all, they balance their bank statement every month, but they're not looking at any reports. And they don't know how to read the reports, is usually what people tell me. I don't know what to look at, and then when I'm looking at it, I don't even know what I'm looking at. So whether you're working with an accountant, or if you have a coach, or if there's somebody that you can sit down with and say, okay, for my specific business, what should I be paying attention to? What areas of my business should I be? What should I be looking at when I run these reports? And I've found that in most cases, these two reports, oh, and I love that little saying, numbers are simply facts and figures. Your business's financial statements are telling you a story. Are you listening? I have a fun little real life story for you about that.
Melissa, I don't want to interrupt, but are you showing us your slides? Because we haven't.
Can you see? You can't see my slides?
No, we haven't. And I'm realizing, like, you keep looking to the side, so I'm thinking that maybe.
Oh my gosh! And I've been making all kinds of weird faces, thinking you were looking at my slides and not my face. All right, hold on.
Oh, you know what? I just realized that, like, you're looking off to the side, so maybe you're actually looking at your slides that you're presenting to us.
Oh my goodness. Oh yeah, and I referenced all kinds of things for you to read. Okay.
No, I'm sorry. I should have said something earlier, but
that's okay.
Actually, in point number, in 2 and going into 3 next, so I'm like, maybe.
Yeah, I didn't click that button. I'm gonna fly through these real quick. This is the cute little poster that I stared at in the 3rd grade that set the tone for how I want to do business.
I cannot see.
You still can't see it?
No.
Why?
We were able to see it earlier, so I'm not quite sure.
Okay. Oh. How about now?
Yes, now I can see it.
Here they are. Here's my cute little opening. Okay. This is a cute little poster, 3rd grade. Love it. Live your life by that poster. These are the questions. I'm going to leave these up here for at least like 5 seconds while I talk about it, because I really do think that these are important questions for you to sit with when you're analyzing your business there. Just leave that for a second. Okay. Happy to share these later if anybody needs them. This was the little saying that I was sharing with you. Your numbers are telling you a story. Are you listening? If you're not listening, history is bound to repeat itself, and it might not be the same history that you might not want it to repeat itself. You might want to make some changes. And then these are the 2 most common reports that people use to look at their numbers when they're analyzing their business. It can certainly get more complicated than this, and there are certainly other reports that are valuable, but this is the 2 main reports. And I'm going to very quickly talk through how to read these reports and what they're telling us. Share a couple of tips, but I don't want to get super nerdy on you. So the first one is the profit and loss statement, and the format is pretty much the same. Its income is going to be at the top. If you track your income pieces by their different components, then you would see totals for that. See, in this example, we have service, we have retail sales, markup income, and landscaping services. A lot of folks don't break it down into categories. They would just have one category that's called sales or income. The next section is what we call cost of goods sold. And that is really, that whole section is only a thing if you are reselling products, in a sense. If you were in this, landscaper or plumber, a car dealer, something like that, where you were buying things and then reselling them, then you would have cost of goods sold. And then the next category are our expenses. By category, there's a standard chart of accounts. That's what this is called, this list. There's a standard list of expenses, but really you can manage that however you like. So for example, I have people that might have a category for office supplies. They might also have one for postage. They might have one for printing. and they might not need all of those. So they can condense that all into office supplies. On the flip side, you might have someone who is shipping things out and they might want to see postage as a separate number and not have it grouped together with their office supplies. So that person might have a category specifically for postage. It really truly is up to you. You know, I coach my clients and explain, you're going to be reading this. So when you look at it, how do you want to see these things categorized? At the end of the day, when I do the taxes, it doesn't matter whether they called it postage or office supplies, or it doesn't even matter. It's all going to end up on a very few lines on the tax return. It's really about you looking at this report so that you can manage your business. I prefer to see a profit and loss report that fits onto one page or that goes on to a page and a half. In my opinion, if you have a 2 to 3 page report, you're not looking at a snapshot anymore. Now you're reading like a chapter, and it's just too much. It's spread out too much so that the things aren't going to jump out at you. If I go back to my office supply example, if you were looking at this report and said, oh my gosh, you know, or let's just look at this report and say, oh, look, job expenses, $2,427. That seems really high. What is that? With QuickBooks and really probably any other bookkeeping software that you're utilizing, you can drill down on that number and see what's behind it. And that's how you would get the more detail that folks are looking for in some cases. But in this case, it really should be a summary so that you can look at it quickly, that if you ran, you know, if you had another column in there with the previous year's numbers, you would be able to easily identify changes, and numbers would pop right out at you. The other report is the balance sheet. This one's a little bit nerdier, but this is where my fun story comes into play. So the balance sheet is, in a sense, the health of your business. It's got assets, liabilities, and equity. Those are the 3 sections. Assets, that's the good stuff. That's money in your hand. That's equipment that you own. It might include accounts receivable, people that owe you money. Liabilities, those are things like loans and credit cards, payroll taxes, those types of things. They're not so much fun. And then the equity section kind of balances out the 2. That is the, in a nutshell, explanation of a balance sheet. So here's my fun little story. Not fun if you're the electrician. We had an electrician come to us, this was a few years back. At the point that he got to us, he owed the IRS a good chunk of money. They were looking for a higher payment, monthly payment, than he could afford. So he was hiring us to help negotiate and prove to the IRS that he could not afford $1,000 a month payment, that he could only afford something like $200, $250. So we're going through his numbers. Now this was the first time we had met him. Keep in mind, I did not do these tax returns that had kind of led to him owing the balance. But we're sitting down looking at the numbers, and I said, this doesn't make sense to me. He said, what? And I said, I've been to your shop. I've looked around on the shelves. I'm not seeing $160,000 worth of inventory. Are you really maintaining an inventory of $160,000? And he said, absolutely not. He says,